I'd like to introduce Celia Mejia, who is the Assistant Director of Student Life and Development here at the beach. I don't want to share too much, so without being said, I'll pass the mic on over to Celia.
Thank you, Marvin. And I'm excited to be with you all today. It's 4 p.m., so I'm hoping you guys can stay with me for this time period. As Marvin said, my name is Celia Mejia, and I'm one of the assistant directors in student life and development. So we are like the main hub of student leadership, leadership academy, student organizations, and all of that has to do with student development and leadership. So of course, welcome. I'm very eager to speak to you guys about this topic because a lot of times parents do have some conflicts about their student involvement, of how much their child or might be overly engaged, or like, should they just focus on academics? So I'm very happy to share with you all this information. And I was seeing when we started who's out of state and who's in state. So I saw Texas out there. I'm actually also out of state. So I came in from Washington State and did my graduate education in California. So I can identify with you all as parents, being what my child might be, how are they going to get involved, move around campus. So I definitely understand those perspectives as well. So today we're going to talk about the co-curricular experience on campus. A lot of times we're like, what is co-curricular? So that is experiences outside of the classroom. A lot of times we stress with, is that like internship? Is that work? Is that student organizations? Is that beach pride? Like what is co-curricular? And it is all of them. Right? It's anything that has to do with outside of the classroom experience. So anything that's not studying, anything that's not taking a quiz or midterm. So all those aspects of, that's what we'll be discussing about today. So this might be a shocker, but how many of your students are constantly or most often on their phones? And a lot of times, like, we're putting restrictions to them or on ourselves, right? So that's kind of what we're running in with nowadays. So a lot of times our advertisement, especially during COVID, everything changed digitally. So maybe your student was probably on their phone a little bit extra, which is okay, because we also found the student engagement platforms such as Discord, TikTok, Instagram, the list goes on and on of where Zoom IDs were provided during COVID. Now, moving on to this fall, we're hoping to bring everyone back on campus in a safely manner. So we're excited for this, which now we continue to use these platforms to spread awareness of where things are or how to get to certain places. I know this semester, some of my students recorded how to get to specific rooms in the union, because believe it or not, it's complicated to move around sometimes. So they literally recorded themselves how to get to this room and joined us for a meeting. So there's different ways that students have been really much engaged, but how do we now get them to actually engage in the actual meeting setting or any co-curricular setting? I also want to note that a lot of students have many concerns, right? One of them I will share is one of my students during COVID, during one of my Zoom meetings was like, I am very concerned. And I was like, why is that? And it's like, well, part of like this whole undergraduate experience is finding my significant other. And I was like, well, let's chat about that. What do you mean? It's like, well, yeah, going to classes, engaging, co-curricular experiences. Like, I'm supposed to talk to people and meet people. And that's how it's supposed to be my significant other. So to their surprise, they actually found their significant other actually currently dating through student organizations and Zoom boxes. And they actually were able to meet in person later on. But you can see that this time, a lot of the classroom settings was just boxes because it's a large classroom setting. And so students are less often to turn on the camera versus smaller group setting. A lot of them were able to turn on the camera. So it was really nice to see the impact of social interaction, virtual, and then moving on to this semester, which was more in person. But I wanted to share that little snippet about how virtual cannot just always be negative. And again, we are the Office of Student Life and Development, and we house fraternity and sorority life, leadership programs, which is our certificate program, student organizations, and club sports. We're kind of like a big overall department with many different areas. pretty much a little snippet. It kind of gets me really excited because this was pre-COVID. So now you guys can probably imagine how excited we are to kind of get something that similar back up and running this fall. So your students coming into a lot of like back to the norm, back to the beach culture, the traditions that were here on campus. So really excited for that for this incoming class and the transfer students coming to campus this upcoming fall. So what skills, abilities do you guys see? Management, team building, group dynamics, leadership, being active, exercising, running, meetings, organization, trying something new, making friends, and socializing. These are all skills that most often you can get in the classroom setting, but most often encounter them going through co-curricular activities. Then again, do not have to be student organizations. A lot of students come to me like, I don't have time. It's like, well, what are you currently doing? Are you working? Are you doing an internship? So it's also finding a place, a home, I would call it, somewhere outside of the classroom setting that you find a home connection, interaction that you can build off your experiences, right? And then we go on to skills employers value in graduates, which similarly, some of these like leadership, ability to work in team, communication skills, problem solving, strong work ethic and initiatives, and analytic and quantitative skills are often skills that you learn not in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. A lot of times we ask like, well, what really are employers looking for? And a lot of times, even now to get even into certain degrees or majors, it's not even like employer, it's also like major type. I can specify on nursing. Before, even the nursing program used to specify a lot on like grades, GPA. So you wanted to get that good GPA, move on to where we are now. Yeah, they're looking for your GPA, but most often now they're looking at what else do you bring as a student into the program. So a lot of times, like what makes that student competitive is like, did they get an internship? Are they involved on campus? Similarly, there's a student organization for the nursing students. So then are they involved in that? How are they involved in it? Through the student organization for the nursing students, they have different workshops that they offer that students get certified. So that's like an addition plus for them and makes them competitive for the nursing major. But then coming back to what employers are looking for, it's similarly the same, right? Yes. Are you looking for the degree? Yes. But when you interview and look at that resume, what else do you bring to that? What is going to spark the interest for that person to really give you a first interview? And then once they interact with you and get to know you more, a second interview, or if there's no second interview, what are the chances of you getting that job? Again, how are you putting all these skills on the platform to make sure that your student is well equipped with all these things? So now there was a survey, well, surveys are being done, as you all know, but they did note that students who become involved in co-curricular activities overall improve their overall grade point, have a shorter time to degree completion, and have a more successful retention from one semester to the next. It's been tough, especially during COVID, mental health, family, like it's a lot, emergencies. But what we do find is that students that have some sort of connection outside of the classroom have a better successful retention rate because they're able to connect with their peers and have more of a support system. A lot of times, like, well, does it have to be student organization? Some are not even student organizations. Some are held within the department level, and the departments run certain areas as well, different programs, different connections, different resources. It really depends on how the student wants to be involved and get that experience overall. A lot of times we're like, well, what's also the benefit? Well, the networking, right? So the networking with alumni, and overall, what kind of experiences do you want as a student? So I think that's the key thing that you all can help the student is figure out what overall experience do they want to get, and how do you help them kind of explore, well, do you want to do this? Well, maybe not. And really like focus on, maybe you should focus on your internship and expand your network there. Maybe their internship, there's someone from, I don't know, USC or UCI that can connect them with more resources. So It's also like not necessarily like expanding the network and expanding the co-curricular activities that they are doing currently. So how are you going to help your student get connected in the area that they want in order to be successful? We all know we want your student to graduate. That's the key thing of coming to the beach. A lot of times we do get some parents that say like, my student is overly involved. Please, what can I do to not have them be too involved? And then the student is doing fantastic. Their GPA is great and everything else seems to be on board. A lot of times as parents, we worry that our student is not going to be able to handle all the stress that comes with it and time manage. Time management, I can say I was not the best when I first started, but you learn as you go. You time manage because you have a lot of things to fit. It's not at, like, for example, at the high school level, which was my greatest learning curve, high school level to undergraduate, of you have definitely more time, free time, and now it's your own schedule. So helping them adjust and how much time are they spending in each area. Some semesters might fluctuate. Some semesters they might be able to have, let's say, an officer position. Other semesters they might not. So, and it's being okay with that and letting them know that their schedules can fluctuate and they can give so much of their time in order to focus at the end of the day, academics. We're here to make sure that they are graduating and that they have a really good GPA, which again is what is important. And then you can help them fluctuate their schedule accordingly. So key thing overall, where do you start? Where do you look at? Where do you begin? There's so many places. One of the things I've been been hearing from new incoming students is everything's beach something. I get it, it's confusing. Right now I'm going to talk to you all about beach scene. There's beach board, beach connect, beach. It's like, what is everything going on campus? It is confusing, but once your student starts looking at the different, especially on their single sign-on, which is the main guru of where they should be going to sign into all these different resources, they start like, oh, this is that. And get more acquainted with what all these different beach link mean. In this case, Beach Sync is our main hub for events. So it's kind of like, you could say like the Facebook of campus. It has events all listed of what's going on campus. It has location. It has all the student organizations on there. It's pretty updated actually. If you all go on there currently, actually, it depends. Some events are open to the public and some are not, so only students can view it. So when the event is created, if it's open to the public, everyone can see it. And if it's only open to students, then only students can see that event. So again, it is an area to explore and kind of gather the interest of like where your student might be interested in. The other thing is, of course, visiting our office. We are in the main center, USU 215. This is where the food court is. That's where I tell my students, like, you need to find me, come to food court, I'll be there. We're right next to the food court in this University Student Union. A lot of times the first weeks of school, I can tell you all, can be the most stressful because everyone's getting told where to go. Here, I need to go this way, I need to go the other way. A lot of times I do get students that are in their 4th, 5th year that come up to me and tell me like, man, I wish I would have known about this. And I go, you probably did. You chose to ignore it. So what happens on campus is that you have a lot of people flyering. And a lot of times you're going to class and it's a lot of times you don't grab the flyer that they're trying to hand you. As I like to tell my students, gather all these flyers and check them out. If they're not of interest, then they're not of interest, but you could be missing an opportunity to learn a great resources. Sometimes as departments, we're also tabling and promoting events going on campus. So that's what I do tell my students, like, it's not that you didn't know, it's that you chose to ignore it. Here's the other thing. Your student is going to get inundated with emails, a lot of emails. And it's like, how do they read so many emails? If it's not coming from their classes, it's coming from the university, the president, things going on campus, invitations to events, you name it. And it can get, again, very very frustrating to be like, what am I doing? Am I going the right way? So again, that might be something that you guys can join in and kind of help them navigate. It's like, okay, this is what's going on this week is going this. Did you go to this? Or what time did that begin? Oh, remember, you need to be at 6 o'clock. You need to be at week of welcome or certain things, right? That would be an area that you guys could support, because there's a lot of things happening on that first few weeks of school. I would want to say the first 3 to 4 weeks. So again, I think the most support from you all would come in those weeks as they try to navigate their time on campus. And obviously a 10-week of welcome. Week of welcome is amazing because you get to see basically all there is on campus in a matter of hours. It really depends on the structure of it. And this year, it seems like we might be going back to what it used to be in before pre-COVID days. So it's pretty exciting because you get to see student organizations, campus resources, campus partners that are all tabling, club sports, ASI, Students Associated Incorporated. And then obviously the key thing that I tell students is do your homework. So if you are interested in engineering, and I like to say, do your homework, go on to BeachSync, check out all the engineering clubs, kind of see their summary of what they're about, and like, oh yeah, it seems like I'd be interested in this one, or this one has nothing to do with what I want to do, or they're not doing anything of my interest. They already have a list. So then when week of welcome comes, most often everyone's out there. So then they can go up to their table and it's like, hey, I saw some interest. Can you tell me more about what you're about? So then they're able to tell them more about what the organization is about. And really now the student, your student can be, oh yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. Or no, these people, I don't think I can blend in or have some sort of connection, but I do feel like I made another connection with someone else. Oftentimes I have students that go in, for example, for engineering and come back and it's like, actually, I found club sports. And I'm like, great, fantastic. Because again, meeting people in person and engaging with the students and getting more information about what they really do is different from what you read on, in this case, BeachSync, versus what you actually see when you come to Week of Welcome and in person. Another key thing is I will definitely probably let you guys know that Instagram and Facebook and TikTok have been very big. So then a lot of students advertise already through social media. I can tell you guys for, let's say, for Trans Sorority Life, registration's already open for IFC and Pan Atlantic Council. So that's another area, right? So then if it's already open, what can you do is do your homework. All of these organizations are already posting stuff about registration, what they're doing over the summer. So have them look at what they did during the year. Did they philanthropy? Did they focus on that academically? How did they do? Did they win awards? For that way, when they actually come, they're like, well, these are the ones that I saw that did more of the work I want to do. So again, fraternity sorority life is another area of involvement that your student could potentially go to. But again, like I advise, I would really recommend that your student does the homework and you probably help them with the homework to try to see where is the best fit for them, where should they get involved, and kind of get a feel for it before they come to campus. So when they come to campus, they have an idea versus not having an idea and being hit with so many things at the same time. But again, that is one of the recommendations I give my students that has been very helpful for them as they come back and find that they like something else different than what they thought they would be interested in the first place.
Fantastic. Thanks, Celia. And with that being said, folks, we're now going to open up for questions. Once again, friendly reminder, please submit your questions in the Q&A function that's located in your toolbar at the bottom of your screen. And then for any of our folks who are watching us out in Facebook world, please go ahead and submit your questions into the comment section of the post. So with that being said, we have a few questions already in the chat or in the Q&A function. So this person asks, Celia, so you say that you all run club sports. How does one sign up for club sports such as men's volleyball or water polo? Assuming it is for a sport, assuming it's a fall sport for men, how quickly does it start?
Very good question. So again, key theme will be Week of Welcome. If I'm not mistaken, they're also at Week of Welcome, and actually a lot of the club sports folks have everything laid out. So if it's boats or you name it, usually they're able to put them out for Week of Welcome. Week of Welcome is a key thing to connect with them. And if your student wants to connect with them before, Instagram, social media, Beach Sync is another good way. And the next one that would be like, I'm not getting any response. It is summer. Give our student leaders a little break because they're on summer mode. So they most often will not start responding till August. Some are already responding, but most often you'll probably get more of your responses in August now that they're coming back to the normal fall session. And obviously there is our club sports office. Brian and Becca are great. There'd be another resource that you guys can connect with. They do, if you go see CSLB Club Sports, their information will pop up as well. That'd be another area that you guys could ask and see where, if they are going to be active. Most often water polo, men's volleyball are usually active, so I'm not concerned with that. And you shouldn't be concerned because most often they are. But again, Week of Welcome is primarily the main time frame for when everyone starts recruiting for any organization.
Great, thank you. It's great for students to get involved with co-curricular activities, but are there tools or sessions to teach students the time management skills so they don't lose track or become overwhelmed?
Yes, there are. So different depends on the office, right? So sometimes even like majors, so we can talk about the College of Liberal Arts, they put on their own workshops as well that deal with these topics. Other times we as Student Life and Development put these also workshops through Leadership Academy. Leadership Academy, there's plenty of workshops. You do not have to be part of Leadership Academy to attend these workshops. So that's key thing to note. A lot of students like, well, I'm not in Leadership Academy. It doesn't matter. You can stop into any of the workshops, even though you're not, and it might actually get you interested. Because again, Leadership Academy, you do get that certificate after you complete the program and a letter of recommendation. So highlight if you do end up, if your student does end up joining Leadership Academy. The other one that also covers such topics is a career center. So that's another area that your student can possibly look at. Time management would be, again, not just time management and like where different skill set workshops, they're offered throughout campus. And again, a lot of the key places that your student will be able to find them will be Beach Sync because they do pop up there, Leadership Academy, different departments on campus, and the most important one, which would be also the Career Development Center. Their workshops are all on Beach Sync as well.
Wonderful. Let's see. In order for parents to support their student, will they be copied on the email so they can help them navigate through the first 2 weeks of school at least?
That would be helpful. I agree. But I don't think so. And Marvin, do you have a little bit more information on that?
Yeah, just so unfortunately, because of FERPA federal laws, we can't really disperse that information out to you. Any information that comes from the university will go directly to your student. It'll go to their student email. So hopefully, if you want to help your student out a little more, just have them check their email on a consistent basis, as well as having their student email connected to the one that they actually may check a lot more often. So when they go and into their portal, one of the things that they can do is forward all the emails that get sent from their student email straight to their personal Gmail or Hotmail or whatever the case is as well. We're sorry about that. We know we definitely want to provide as much support as possible. And honestly, just visiting the Student Life and Development website, you'll find out, or not the ASI website, you'll learn a lot more about Week of Welcome as well. Which is actually the next question. The next question asks, when is Week of Welcome? I think it's on the previous slide.
It is. It's the week of the 28th through the 1st. So it's the second week of school classes. So that's the key thing, which is cool about Week of Welcome. It's kind of cool because now you can also ask your student every semester, did you attend Week of Welcome? It's the second week of school. It has been like that actually, even now during COVID, they kept it the same. It's second week of school. So that's easy way to remind your student, like, did you attend Week of Welcome? Even if they're already involved, you never know. They might find something new at Week of Welcome. And there's a lot of freebies and food trucks. So again, even if they're already involved and found their main home, it's always great to just stop by and see what there is on campus. So again, that is the week of the 29th. But again, it is Week of Welcome. And then there's a lot of other events going on. So making sure to keep those in the lookout. Cultural welcomes are also in September. There's a lot of stuff going on campus that I really recommend that they check out. A lot of times it's like, well, they don't have time. You don't have, your student does not have to stay the whole time. They could go scanning, grab some food and bounce. They do not need to stay the full time. They can check it out and it's like, okay, this is overwhelming, I need to leave. They can definitely leave. That's the other thing. It's like, but I don't have the time to stay. It's like, no, no, no. You go in, check what you need to check out, and you go to class, or you go study to the library, or you head out for the day. So they do not need to stay the whole time.
Great. Let's see. Um, I don't know if we have this exact number, but the question is, what are what are the clubs that are available on campus, and then how many clubs are there as well?
There's so many. So we have so many, and they're split into different categories. So fraternity sorority life, club sports, and then we have academic based, then we have career and developmental. We have special interests, religious, political, cultural. So those are just a few that STEM. We have over 500 clubs on campus. So again, I'm sure your student can find something of interest. And a lot of times, maybe they find a few and maybe they can't even decide, which has been the case, which we do have students that are overwhelmed and come stop by and come to see us. And we help them kind of navigate through that. So again, making sure that your student is connected. So again, our office is a good spot to stop by. Associated Students Incorporated is another good area. Associated Students Incorporated, ASI, is usually also very available, especially during that first few weeks of just being able as a resource and guiding students. And then also the first few weeks, there's additional support from just staff and students around campus, kind of guiding everyone around what's happening and giving more information.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, when I was here, I was a part of like 3 clubs, and it was amazing to see how many clubs are available on campus.
Yep.
Cool. So speaking of clubs, can you join a club at any time during the summer?
That's a very good question. So, for example, club sports, obviously, sometimes there are tryouts. There's certain timelines because obviously, if there are tournaments or games, you do have to be fill out paperwork and be on the team or make it to the team. So it has to be certain time period. So you might have to wait your student might have to wait a full semester. Fraternity and sorority life is another one. So recruitment does begin this also similarly the second or third week of school. So again, that time period also ends and then it reopens until the spring. Most often, it also impacts cultural Greeks and national Panhellenic councils. So again, usually run on the same timeline. The rest of the student organizations also follow a similar timeline sometime in the fall, but do expand more than club sports and fraternity and sorority life. Their deadline is more towards like October. So they have a little bit more time, but then that is for the full year. So then it really is depending on their organization of when they can join. A lot of times, like, man, I missed my shot. Sometimes it depends on the organization they're looking into and are interested in, but most often they will have that opportunity in the spring. So a lot of time it's like, you want to explore fall semester, great idea. Get your feet wet here and there. And then spring, make that decision of like, all right, my time, my hours outside of academic is going to go in this area. And then spring, they jump into what they really want to do. So again, really contingent on what they want to do once they start school, because the other thing is like they might want to explore and then join something in the spring, have that mentality, but they end up finding what they really want in the fall. So again, it's really based on the experience of that student when they actually come to campus.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's keep it going. Let's see. Um, is there a charge to be a part of club sports?
Good question. Depending again on the organization, there will be fees. So club sports is one of them. Fraternity and sorority life, that's another one. There's different fees. Student organizations, that's another one. There's membership dues for each one. It depends differently where these dues go for. Club sports, fraternity and sorority life, and student organizations use these dues or fees for certain things, such as doing community service events, food, t-shirts. So like the funds that your student will give will go into something that they most likely will get in return. So again, it really depends on the organization and the amount.
Fantastic. Awesome. Awesome. Speaking earlier, you spoke a little bit about fraternities, sororities. Do you all have a Greek grow on your campus?
Yeah, good question. Very good questions. Not here at the beach. So interesting. I do come from working at, I graduated from UCLA. So at UCLA, we did have rows and different campuses here in Southern California. We do. Here at the beach, we don't, but we do have chapter houses. So that's the difference. We might not have them in the same location, but we do have them in the Long Beach community. So there are a few houses that are recognized and that do serve fraternity and sorority life on this campus. So if you are interested, or you might be a legacy or interested, definitely reach out to our office, and we are more than gladly to provide you information on that as well.
Great, great, great. Let's see. How often do fraternities and sororities have events and meetings?
Another good question. So most often for fraternity and sorority life, they do have their chapter meetings. And then the biggest thing, a lot, a lot of times is their philanthropy weeks. So that takes a lot of the time. They have formal events that take place off campus. Are these all required? No. Chapter meetings most often. But again, it's looking to see the involvement that your student wants to put into that fraternity or sorority, and what they take out of it. Are things sometimes mandatory? Of course. But again, it really depends. Let's say if they have work, then obviously they're not going to attend philanthropy, right? Because they're at work. There's certain things, as long as, again, key thing to any, not just fraternity sorority life, but club sports and student organizations, is a communication that that student provides back to the leadership running the organization, and being able, I have work, I'm not able to do it. Because the less conversation you have with the student organization leaders running the organization, the more potential fines you might get. So to avoid fines, additional fines for not communicating, is letting them know, like, hey, I'm actually have work, I'm not able to attend such and such events. So again, that would be my key thing, is like getting to know what's required of that organization, and then what does the student schedule look like, and just communicating with them of the availability that they have in this case.
Great. Let's see. Um, what's the difference between a cultural club and a fraternity?
Good question. Again, lots of good questions. So interestingly, fraternity and sorority life does have cultural organizations. So we have a multicultural Greek council. Our multicultural Greek council is comprised of our LGBTQ fraternity, Asian, Latino, and multicultural organizations. So that's that council. And then we have our traditional African American organizations, the National Panhellenic Council, D9, so that within fraternity and sorority life on this campus, you still get that cultural aspect, which again, amazing organizations, philanthropy, they do amazing work. And then on top of that, we have other cultural organizations, which include your Latino Student Union, Black Resource Center, the list can go on. And these are separate from fraternity and sorority life. But most often you find that our students are intermixed. So they're involved with those organizations and involved with fraternity and sorority life. So they have their feet wet in both and do similar work. And it's a bonus because they're most often working partnerships and doing several events on campus. So it's like, if your student is involved in, let's say, the Black Student Union and in one of the Black sororities, then they're already partnering. And so they don't have to double dip or do certain double things on campus because they're doing partnerships, which again, key thing is collaborating and learning that aspect as well.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see. Are is there a GPA requirement to join any of these clubs?
Oh, another good question. Depending on the organization, there will be. So I can let you know, there's certain requirements for fraternity and sorority life. So there are certain requirements that a member has to meet to go through a process. Same thing with club sports. And I think the more flexible ones tend to be student organizations that tend to be a little bit more lenient. But again, it depends because some do. A lot of times also honor societies, academic honor societies obviously do have a GPA requirement. So it really depends on the organization that your student wants to join. I think it goes back to what I noted. It's like really do your homework. Your student does your homework and help them do their homework, because it can be very overwhelming to see what they're interested in. And then once they get a good idea of what they want to be involved, then they kind of make a list. What are the requirements for this? And then do they meet it? And if they don't, I really encourage them not to be discouraged, because that only empowers them to be like, man, I can't even join because of my GPA. So their focus is to get their GPA up so they can now be involved in what they want on campus. So either way, it's kind of also serves as a motivation. If they don't have certain requirements, it's like, especially that academic GPA, again, we're all at the beach for one purpose, and it's one, to make sure students are graduating. And one key thing is for them to know that their main role here on campus is to graduate and have good academics, but also how do they add on this layer of co-curricular involvement to, again, at the end of the day, make them more competitive once they graduate.
Perfect. Let's see. Do club sports compete against other Cal States?
They do, and it depends on the sport. So it depends on the sport and where they're available. So a lot of times it depends on the club sport, because we could be like competing at the UC level too. It really depends on which club sport we're talking about.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's see. How can my student go about taking a leadership role in their club?
Very good question. I would definitely say if they're incoming, definitely get a kind of like a main, what is this organization about? And then how are the officer structure split? Sometimes they have so many officers depending on the organization. Sometimes they have a junior board. So it really depends on the structure of that student organization. Most often, if there is a junior board opportunity, definitely jump into the junior board right off the bat, because that gives them an experience of like lesser of a role than the real leadership. Not to say it's not real, but it kind of gives them a snippet, kind of gets them prepared for what that will look like. So that's a good way to go about it if there is that opportunity to be on the junior board leading up to the leadership role. Other times it's really looking at the documents of that student organization. So not most often, they all have bylaws, a constitution and bylaws, and it lays out the duties of that specific officer. So a lot of times it's like, some students come like, I didn't think it was going to be that much work. It's like, well, did you read the document and what your duties would be? It's like, no, I just thought it was cool and a fancy title. And I didn't think they were doing that much when I was a member. It's like, you don't see behind the scenes of what they really do. So then I was able to walk with them of like their duties and what they needed to do. And they kind of were like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So again, those documents are helpful for that in that role. But oftentimes what I do tell students, like kind of see your first year of like, where do you see yourself as a leader? Oftentimes we already come in as leaders. I was one of them. It's like, I want to be a leader right off the bat. But once you get here, it's like, whoa, again, goes back to that time management. Where am I and where is my time? And then little by little, do you start like, okay, now I can do this. And there's always time to explore. So I would definitely encourage your student not to feel the need to jump into something real quick. Although I can tell you, one of the biggest stressors for student is finding their family, not just on this campus, on any campus. Finding out where they belong, finding that knit community. And it is rough. It's like some people find it easier than others, but that's why it's like, don't rush. Make sure you find that what your student finds is what they feel comfortable with. And a lot of times it's that those first few 3 to 4 weeks that they find that connection with people. And I do say it is, because then you get those relationships that do last a long time, literally a long time. Which I can tell you a quick story. I was able to meet my group of my family. And actually I was lucky enough to travel to see her during summertime. And right now she's in Germany. So I was able to travel to go see her. And this is a connection I made through my involvement and that connection of attending student events and meeting that way. So again, you do meet lifelong friends. And in this case, as the earlier story I mentioned, my student was able to meet their partner that they're currently dating. So leads to many things. So don't rush it. Your student will find where they need to be. They just need to explore and have that time and flexibility of time management also added in there to make sure that they're in the right direction.
Great. All right, folks. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. Once again, if we weren't able to answer your question today during the presentation, go ahead and just leave them in the chat function, and then we'll be able to answer them at a later time. So let's see. Is your department hiring, or do they only hire students?
We do hire, but we hire work study. So that's going to be another might open more questions. But I really encourage you to help your student check if they are eligible for work study. A lot of departments on campus hire students that have work study. So that's another key thing to look at and help them kind of find where work study is listed. A lot of times I do get students that are like, but I don't have work study listed. And a lot of times it could have been a mistake that was made on the FAFSA. So then I would recommend talking to financial aid of like, why don't I have work study, and looking into that early on. A lot of departments start hiring August. So then again, I would definitely encourage you all to see if they do fall in work study, because that's when like my department begins hiring students. And there is a work study fair for students that qualify for work study. So look out for that. We will be there as well for this work study fair that it's all these departments that come together that are hiring work study students. But keynote, not all departments hire just work study. There's some that do hire students that do not have work study.
Fantastic. And this will be actually our last question for the day. Is it better to join a club in your freshman year rather than later?
I don't think there is a timeline. I think it depends on how comfortable the student feels in joining the organization. For myself, I waited a full year and got my feet wet and kind of learned what everything meant. I have a sibling who is younger that didn't wait and joined like that off the bat and loved it, and her experiences were great. So you can see there's a difference of like comfortability. And for me, I waited a little bit more versus my sister found her family right off the bat and she joined right away and got involved with her organization. So it really depends on the student and their comfortability to get involved and where they want to get involved. And if they're 100% sure, especially if it means an investment of funds and investing money into membership, they really got to be sure that that's what they're looking forward to doing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Celia. But with that being said, that will be the last question that we take today. But in the event that you think of a question after we finish today's webinar and you don't know where to go, give our office a call here at PFO. Our office number is on the screen, 562-985-5515, or email us as well so we can help you. I know that there's plenty of resources that are available to your students on campus, and if you don't know where to start, please start with our office. Secondly, we are a learning institution, and we're constantly trying to improve how we run our events here. So in a moment, you'll see a link in the chat that'll actually take you to the QR code that's on the screen, or you can also use your phone, scan the QR code. If you take about 5 minutes to fill out the survey, you'll automatically be entered into a chance to win some beach swag. But before we head out, I do want to say thank you again, Celia, for taking the last hour to speak with us about SLD, and I also want to give you a platform one last time to share any last thoughts that you want to share with our viewers.
Thank you everyone for sticking along through this 4 o'clock. I hope you guys learned a lot. We're excited to have your student here in the fall. And again, I'm sure they'll find their family. We're excited again to kind of help them find their way. And I'm sure they will. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time, but again, give them a little boost of confidence that they will eventually navigate this campus.
Thanks, Celia. And with that being said, folks, I want to thank you all for your time. You all been an amazing audience. We hope to see you all in the fall, and hopefully we'll see you all in the next webinar. And with that being said, have a great day and go beach.